Hey guys, Dave from Nerdarchy, 4 Nerds by Nerds. With me today.
It's Ted.
Today we continue our journey into Eberron and why 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons needs it with the Kalashtar and Psionics.
Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So we're back for more Eberron goodness. This time we're going to be talking about the Kalashtar and Psionics in Eberron.
Now, the Kalistar are a really cool psionic race, and this is primarily because their body is kind of at war, not necessarily with itself, but it's got a human soul and a Quori spirit at the same time. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's how I've read it.
So I wouldn't go with war. It's a symbiotic relationship. So it's a symbiosis, and since they're both sentient creatures, they've agreed to it. So I don't think there's any war. But you have two entities occupying the same space.
Right. Now, what does that mean? The Kalashtar are like humans, but they're a little bit more elegant, a little bit more pretty, and they're possessed with a whole different mindset, because while other kids are learning to do this and wanting to steal sweets, they're focusing on these memories that aren't really theirs and are essentially achieving adulthood mentality that much sooner.
Yeah, they're constantly being bombarded and exposed to a more mature personality as they age.
Right, and that has to do with the Quori spirit that lives within them.
So let's get into that a little bit, right? So they're Quori, they're a good Quori, and they're a bad Quori, right? And the Quori is basically from the dream realm. The belief is there is one primary sleeper dreamer that is dreaming, that whole realm and region, and they all inhabit it.
Right.
And it goes through cycles. Right now, they believe they're in the 3rd cycle, and this is the cycle of the Dreaming Dark. It's kind of bad. It's kind of destructive. Evil is kind of winning. So they were obliterating the good Quori, and they did the only thing they could, and they fled. And what they did is they found a monastery in Eberron on the continent of Sarona. Sarlona, right? And there they made the first Quori made an agreement with one of the monks in the monastery, and he allowed them to inhabit it, as did 60 other volunteers, which was the last of the Quori, right. The good ones.
There's 67 Quori that formed these distinct lineages of Kalashtar. And when a Kalashtar decides that they're going to reproduce, because it's the only way that these Quori are going to continue on, and thus the Kalistar, live on, is through reproduction. Now, the Kalistar beliefs don't match up with typical human beliefs. They don't believe in, bonded pairing, remaining together for life. They produce children for the continuation of the species, of the race, but that's all it is. And your name actually begins with your lineage. So if you are the Quori Lan, then all lineage in that name is going to start off with Lan something, or Lan something, however you want to pronounce it. And if a male Quori has a child and it's a male, it's going to automatically have that Lan lineage. It's guaranteed. Even if they bond, or even if they mate with something that isn't Kalashtar. So if they mate with a human or a half-elf, it could beget another Kalashtar. But if he winds up having a daughter, then it's going to be whatever the other race was.
Right, so it's just going to stick with it.
So in typical Kalashtar societies, when two Kalashtar do reproduce, whatever that child winds up having as a lineage, it will go live with others of its ilk. And it is, unheard of for a group to live together that don't have the same lineage, because they don't have that shared background of that Quori spirit. So that they tend to find those kind of things odd. And there is a little bit of a break from the norm here, and that's adventurer Kalistar, who they've already broken from their typical lineage by going out into the world and being an adventurer, even if it is to further the Kalistar's aim. And then they might wind up forming a normal family unit that the rest of the world accepts.
Which is very interesting. Now, the Kalistar, in my mind, they're very ordered. They're very, they're very logical. They kind of remind me of Vulcans.
There is some. I would definitely see that there is some Vulcan
Similarities.
similarities, but I was gonna say like that they were that there's some things that were inspired by Vulcans in their creation, because clearly Kalistar have not been out as long as Vulcans.
No. Well, they definitely do things for the joy of they don't do. They definitely don't do things for the joy of doing them. They don't make art for art's sake. All that stuff has to have a greater purpose.
Right. The collection of psychic stones that exist in Eberron. They've formed this piece of artwork with it as a collection, so that they could be able to draw on these memories, and you'd actually have Kalistar, because they don't dream. They can go and touch these stones and get someone else's dreams, which is kind of a really weird but cool thing for the Kalistar, because they don't dream when they sleep. They have the memories of the Quori that is their lineage.
So one of the interesting things to note too is, they don't really have spellcasters. They do have a religion, but it has nothing to do with the gods or divine magic or anything like that. Generally they're going to be of a psionic class. Now for 5th edition, this doesn't really mean as much because we only have the mystic right now.
Right.
But in previous editions you had scions, wilders, soul knives, psychic warriors. So there were different ones to choose from, and pretty predominantly, if they had a character class, it was going to be one of them, with like one exception, and that's the monk.
Right.
And they had their own monk tradition, and with Path of Shadows is like the martial art that they use.
Right, and I mean, you could literally just take that right into 5th edition, because we have a Path of Shadows.
Yeah, that one actually might work as well. And it really, like, I've seen it described as like they are the light in the center of the shadows. So that is the concept behind their martial art.
Mm-hmm. And their martial art goes one step further than just being I want to have a fighting style. They actually use that as their meditation for their martial classes. They want to do this art form as their guided meditation. It's very fluid. It's very graceful. They actually almost incorporate it as a dance when they're actually doing and practicing the art form. And while the book was written for 3rd edition, which we want for 5th, it actually does say that you should actually have Rankson perform dance if you want to actually make this look even better.
Oh, excellent. So, and that would just be performance. And
right, for 5th edition, it would just be performance, and
or maybe an entertainer background, but you could do some interesting things with that. But that being said, they do have a religion,
mm-hmm.
and it is the Path of Light.
It is the Path of Light, and they're going to be divided into 2 distinct branches. You're either a light bringer or a shadow watcher. If you're a light bringer, you're going to be more of the mindset that this is a spiritual battle. We are going to win the war against the Dreaming Dark by meditation, either individually or as a group. And every time you sit down and meditate and you focus your power on ending the darkness, bringing about the next age, that the next age will be an age of light. The Dreaming Dark will be defeated, and it will be done totally on a spiritual battle. The other side is the Shadow Watchers, and they're the ones who are like, no, I am willing to go out, and I will risk this body to physically bring down our enemies. We will bring down the Dreaming Dark. And there's some that believe it's going to take both sides working together, but many believe it's going to be just one, or it's going to be just the other. And there is a 3rd branch, but it's basically those who have turned against the ways of the Kalistar, and it's either you just don't care, or you're not working towards these ends and you're working against them.
Well, it's their version of an atheist or agnostic,
Right,
pretty
right.
much. So, and Ilyana is also I believe, the Kalistar or Quori word for that religion,
Yeah.
path of light, as
Mhm.
well. So, and that kind of brings us to, when we've kind of danced around and talked about the Dreaming Dark, and it's basically this organization made up of Quarry, right? The Dark Quarry, who actually want to not see the next age come about. They want this age to continue. They want the Kalistar to be eradicated. They want the rest of the good Quarry to be destroyed. And to that end, on Rajura, they basically created a kingdom and said, "Oh, well, this is what the Quarry are doing. Well, we're going to do the same thing." And he created the Inspired.
Mhm.
So, and I think they have a slight advantage too in numbers,
Numbers, yeah.
yeah, because there was more of them to come over and do this with.
Well, and it goes beyond that. Most of the Kalistar are like hidden away in a few monasteries, trying to go, be light bringers. They're not willing to go out and risk themselves because they don't want to see the lineage fall. They don't want to see the race of Kalistar fall. So they protect themselves in the only way they can. But they do encourage those who actually do go out and become adventurers and make a name for themselves to propagate your line. Get that spirit out there.
Spread the word.
Spread, well, not spread the word.
Yeah.
So I mean, it does offer some advantages. Now that's more of a story thing, unless that's the kind of game you're into. But
So,
not everybody's into that kind of game.
yeah, so if you're playing a Kalistar, you can expect you're essentially at war, and you just come to the table with enemies, whether you want them or not.
Whether you want them or not, and that's something that any good DM that's seeing a Kalistar on the table, like they number one, the player is expected. You should be paranoid. You should be expecting, that at any point in time, your allies could become your enemies. Your neutral people. Should I trust them or should I not?
The Dreaming Dark is out there.
But the Dreaming Dark is absolutely out there, and they are gunning for you, or they're gunning for that character, and you've got to incorporate that in there. Otherwise, you're just not paying homage to what that race is. Now, if you have a good, I don't mean alignment wise, but I mean if you have an intelligent Kalistar, like they should be doing everything they can to hide what their race is. They should be trying to blend in with humans, and that's a typical thing for them when they leave the monastery, because they're scared that their life is on the line. But anyone who's insightful, it might pick up on some of the oddities of that human, because they're going to do things that humans don't really do, or like they're going to be like, oh well, I'm going to go sit and meditate. Well, didn't you meditate like an hour ago, or didn't you meditate yesterday? Is that something is it something you do all the time? Like you don't seem to be that type.
They also remind me that race speaks to me like they're all models and super hot. It's kind of the way they're described, even though they don't really get the stat bonuses in that direction. But that's the way they're described.
Well, it is a minor break from what charisma was in earlier editions. That charisma was, this is your attractiveness. In later editions of D&D, they've talked about, well, you can be attractive and obnoxious, which means your charisma is lower than what your look score would be. So
True enough. So as we said, like the main thing about them is they just start off psionic. That's their thing. They all have some access to psionic power. The Dreaming Dark is very much a part of their existence, and really we couple psionics with Kalistar, and being in Eberron because of the Kalistar. Basically the dream realm is the thing that kind of awakens psionics, I think, in Eberron and those who've touched it, which means it's out there so others can use it as well.
and it winds up becoming a very active role in Eberron. I mean, we talked about some of our earlier videos about how magic is ever present, and by the time we're up to the current storyline, psionics is just as prevalent. It's just as out there, and it's going to get used by everyday people. And when you're in a world where the person just walking casually down the street has the ability to reach out and touch your mind. It's like, whoa, wait a second, what kind of world am I living in here?
Yeah, but I think that's more regional. I don't think it's as widespread as Magic.
All right, well, it might not be everywhere as prevalent, but it's definitely out there. It's definitely, like, I mean, it's not Athos, but I mean, it's definitely not Forgotten Realms.
Well, that's true. It is. It's more prevalent, especially on that particular continent of Salorna or whatever. Salona. You're going to find a lot more of it between Inspired and the Kalistar. So Kalistar is just another great reason to put Eberron or put 5th edition in your Eberron game. There's a lot of fun. There's a lot of plot threads. There's a lot of cool things you can do as a player and a GM. So what do you guys think about adding the Kalashtar to your game and having Eberron in 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons? Let us know in the comments below. While you're there, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out over on nerdarchy.com.
Until next time,
stay nerdy.